There is a driver in eastern Ohio who ran 29 years over the road and got waved into the scale house for a full inspection 41 times. He was placed out of service exactly once, inside his first 18 months. Out of service means the truck does not move until somebody with a wrench says it can on your dime while the load sits and the clock runs. He went 27 more years without it, and not because he had a brand new Peterbilt. Somewhere in year 2, an old flatbedder standing in a Kentucky truck stop lot explained what an inspector is actually looking at, and it changed how he ran everything after that. Tonight you get all 7 of those things, plus the 5 mistakes that undo them, including one that feels polite and helpful, but keeps a clipboard parked at your door twice as long as it needs to be. Now, you might be watching because you still turn miles and you would like fewer surprises at the scale. You might be watching because you parked the truck years ago and can still smell a scale house at 4 in the morning. Or you might just be curious what happens during those 40 minutes on the shoulder with the 4 ways flashing and an inspector on his back under a trailer. Either way, none of this came out of a manual. It came from drivers standing in the cold beside a man with a flashlight and a mirror on a stick. And it starts with something that surprises almost every rookie about how the inspection began. Number 1. The pre-selection. A lot of drivers picture it as a coin flip. The scale is open, the sign says, "Pull in," and some officer with a clipboard picks a truck out of the line because he did not care for the look of it. That has not been true for a long time. When you roll onto the ramp at a weigh station, a camera reads the plate and the DOT number painted on your door before the tires ever touch the platform. That number pulls the carrier's federal safety record onto a screen inside the building, and the software turns that record into a single figure called the inspection selection score. Carriers land in one of 3 bands. The bottom band gets waved through. The middle band is left to the officer's discretion. The top band is a flat recommendation to inspect, and if there is an open bay and a certified inspector on shift, that truck is getting looked at. That is also the engine behind the bypass services drivers pay for. The transponder in the windshield is reading the same carrier record and telling you what the scale already knows. An owner-operator out of Tennessee spent 11 years believing certain states just did not like him. Then he pulled his own carrier record for the first time, sat in a parking lot in Little Rock, reading it on his phone, and found 4 violations he had never once thought about again, all still counting. He said it was the worst afternoon and the most useful afternoon he ever had, so the veterans stopped treating inspections as weather and start treating them as arithmetic. Every clean inspection lowers the number and every violation raises it, and the driver who thinks he got unlucky at the scale in Indiana usually got a bill for something that happened in Arizona 4 months back. But the score only opens the door. What happens once you park at the bay comes down to something you can hold in your hand. Number 2, the decal economy. Walk any truck stop and look at the passenger doors of the rigs that have been out there a long time. On a lot of them, you will find a small colored sticker with a triangle and a shield. That is a Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance decal, and drivers who understand it treat it like currency. You earn one by passing a full inspection with no out-of-service defects, and only 2 kinds of inspection qualify: the complete roadside examination and the vehicle-only version run at a terminal without the driver present. Nothing shorter counts, no matter how thorough it felt standing there. The decal runs for 3 months, the month it was issued, plus 2 more. A sticker handed to you in February is good through the end of April, which trips up drivers who assume it dies with the quarter. The color tells an officer which quarter it came from: green for the first, then yellow, orange, and white, and the corners get trimmed to show which month inside that quarter. He can read all of that from across the lot without ever walking up. It is not a legal free pass, and it will not stop a trooper who watched you drift onto the rumble strip. But inspectors have limited hours and a long line of trucks, and a fresh decal tells them somebody already crawled under this thing and found nothing worth writing, which leads to the move that separates the veterans from everybody else. New drivers spend careers trying to avoid inspections. Long-timers go get one on purpose. A slow Tuesday, a quiet scale, a truck they know is right, and they volunteer. Clean report, decal on the door, score comes down, and the next 3 months run with the wind at their back. One owner-operator out of Missouri built it into his year the way other people schedule an oil change. He called it buying quiet. But a decal only means something if the inspection behind it was real, and that depends on knowing what kind of inspection you are standing in. Number 3, the level question. An inspector walks up to your window and says he is going to run an inspection. To a rookie, that means trouble of unknown length and unknown outcome. To a veteran, it means almost nothing until he hears the number, because these inspections come in levels, and the levels are wildly different animals. The full examination is 37 steps, and it is the one you are most likely to get. Close to half of all inspections written in this country are that one. The inspector goes under on a creeper and works the brakes, the suspension, the steering, the frame rails, the exhaust, the fuel system, the wheels and rims. It runs 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and it is the one that earns the decal. The driver-only inspection is the second most common and the fastest way out of a scale house. License, medical certificate, hours of service, seatbelt, permits, endorsements. Nobody is going under the truck, and it is often over in 15 minutes because it can be run anywhere by anyone with a badge and a laptop. Then there is the walk-around. The driver's documents plus everything the inspector can see and reach without climbing underneath. Lamps, tires, mirrors, coupling, securement, emergency equipment. There is also a vehicle-only version run at terminals without the driver present, and the criteria do get updated, so confirm what applies in the states you run. A reefer hauler out of Michigan said the single best habit he ever picked up was one question, asked politely through the window before anything else. Which level is this? He said the answer told him whether to shut the engine down and get comfortable or leave his coffee in the holder, and inspectors never once took it badly. Knowing the level tells you 3 things instantly: how long you will be there, what is about to be touched, and whether the paperwork or the equipment is in the crosshairs. And a huge share of the time, the reason the flashlight came out at all was something that costs about $4 at any truck stop counter. Number 4. The small stuff is the doorway. Ask any inspector what starts most of his mornings and you get some version of the same answer. Lamps. A burned-out marker light on the side of a trailer is one of the most common violations written in this country. Cheap, quick, and by itself barely worth mentioning. It matters because of what it tells the man walking up to the truck. Put yourself on his side of it. He has 90 seconds and a lot full of rigs, and he cannot see your maintenance file or your brake adjustment. So he reads proxies, a dark lamp, a mud flap dragging, a fuel cap hanging by the tether, a wire loom taped up with something that is definitely not electrical tape, a windshield crack running through the wiper sweep. None of that is an out-of-service order. All of it answers the only question he is really asking, which is whether this truck gets looked after. One retired inspector out of Pennsylvania put it plainly. He said he never wrote a truck up because of a marker lamp. He wrote up the trucks whose marker lamps told him to keep walking. That is why long-timers carry a bin of bulbs and never let a light stay dark for a single trip, and why they wipe the windshield and clear the passenger floor before rolling onto a scale. The cab is the only part of your operation visible in the first 30 seconds, and a clean one quietly ends a lot of conversations. But a clean truck with stale paperwork gets you nowhere. Number 5. The unfinished stack. This is the part that catches even good drivers. Running an electronic logging device does not mean you are done with paper. The federal rules still expect a small packet in the cab. A user manual for the device, a sheet on how to transfer records to an officer, instructions for what to do when the unit malfunctions, and enough blank paper log grids to record duty status for at least 8 days. That last one is the classic. A driver who has never had a device failure sees no reason to carry blank logs, so he does not. And a 15-minute driver inspection turns up a violation he did not know existed. Usually not an out-of-service item. It still lands on the record. The rest of the stack is the part everybody knows and half of them let go stale. Registration and cab card, insurance, permits for the states and loads you actually run, a valid medical examiner's certificate matching the license record, and the annual periodic inspection report for the tractor and every trailer. That last one lives in a pouch on the trailer frame, and plenty of drivers have never once opened it. The veterans keep all of it in one place in order and know which pocket each item is in. Fumbling through a glove box for 4 minutes is its own kind of answer. If you are getting something out of this, hit subscribe. This channel covers real-world working knowledge like this every week. Now, all of that keeps the inspection short. Only one system on the truck decides whether you drive away at all. Number 6. The brake math. Every year, when enforcement agencies publish what actually put trucks out of service, the same category sits at the top by a wide margin. Brakes. Not logs, not lights. There are 2 reasons. The first is the 20% rule. Count the brakes on the vehicle, and if 20% or more are defective, the truck goes out of service on the spot. On a 5-axle combination, that math turns cruel fast. 2 bad brakes out of 10, and you are in the lot, waiting on a mobile mechanic and a tow bill. The second reason is that brake defects are easy to miss and easy for an inspector to find. He is under there with a marked ruler measuring pushrod travel while somebody sets the brakes, and the limits are tight and specific to the chamber type. He runs a gloved hand along the air hoses looking for chafe because a hose worn down to the reinforcement underneath comes out of service automatically. He looks for drum cracks, linings shining with oil, a slack adjuster sitting at the wrong angle, an air leak you can hear if the lot is quiet. Here is the part that stings. Nearly all of it is visible from a creeper in your own yard, if you can actually see. That is where drivers fail, and it is a light problem more than a knowledge problem. A flashlight held in your teeth while both hands are busy is how brake chambers go uninspected at 5 in the morning in a gravel lot in January. Most long-timers gave up on flashlights years ago and stick a cheap magnetic work light to the frame rail instead, so both hands stay free and the whole undercarriage is lit like a shop bay. Remember the Ohio driver from the start of this video, the one placed out of service exactly once. That one time was a breakout of adjustment on the second axle, and he said afterward that he had walked past it for 11 days without ever getting on his back to look. 29 years, and it was the one thing he never checked. Because an inspector is going to see everything under there with proper light. The only question is whether you saw it first. And even after he stands up and hands you the paper, it is not over. Number 7. The report outlives the stop. New drivers think an inspection ends when the officer says you are good to go. It ends about 2 years later, and that gap is what costs people the most money. Every roadside inspection, clean or not, becomes a federal record attached to the carrier and the driver. Violations carry severity weights and feed the safety categories behind that inspection selection score from the very first rule. And the way those weights get calculated changed recently, in a way a lot of drivers still have not caught up with. The scoring system was rebuilt to lean hard on the most recent 12 months of data, with violation codes consolidated and severity weights simplified. Older write-ups still sit on the record for 2 full years. But they fade faster now, and a cluster of recent ones hits harder than it used to. There is also a new maintenance category tied specifically to what the driver observed and documented, which means the quality of your own pre-trip paperwork now moves the number directly. The practical version of that is simple. A bad stretch hurts more and hurts sooner, and a clean stretch digs you out faster than it ever did before. The driver's own screening record is a separate file, carrying inspection history for 3 years and crash involvement for 5, and recruiters and underwriters both pull it. So the veterans do 3 unglamorous things. They stand at the front bumper and read the report before leaving the lot, all of it, including boxes that were checked but not written as out of service. They get the signed copy back to the carrier because there is a 15-day window to certify the defects were corrected. And when something on the report is simply wrong, a violation belonging to another carrier or a defect the truck did not have, they file a formal data review challenge instead of grumbling about it at a truck stop for a decade. One driver out of Wisconsin got a brake violation entered against his unit that belonged to the truck inspected ahead of him. He sat down at a fold-out table in his sleeper with his phone photographs and the repair order from the shop, filed the challenge, and it came off. He called it the best-paying 40 minutes of his year. So, those are the 7. Follow them and you become the truck that is boring to look at. But there are 5 mistakes that undo the entire thing, and the first one happens in the yard before the wheels ever turn. Mistake number 1. The pre-trip that is only a signature. Everybody knows the pre-trip is required. The mistake is treating it as a form instead of a walk. A driver climbs in cold at 4 in the morning, clicks through the screens, signs the previous report, and rolls out into the dark, having personally verified nothing. Then the scale in the next state finds a flat inside dual he has been riding on for 200 miles, and there is no version of that conversation that goes well, because the inspector is holding a document saying the driver checked it. The men who never get caught out run the same loop every time in the same order, so the order does the remembering. Lights, tires and rims by hand rather than by eye, because an inside dual going flat is silent. Air system and brakes, coupling and landing gear, securement, emergency equipment, meaning the triangles, the charged and mounted extinguisher, the spare fuses. 12 minutes and it has saved careers. Mistake number 2, fixing it in front of him. An inspector walks up. The driver reaches over and clicks the seatbelt, or sweeps the loose paperwork off the dash into the footwell, or steps out and quietly shoves a strap tighter on the way past the trailer. All of it gets seen. Inspectors watch approaches for a living, and a repair performed during an inspection is not a repair, it is a confession. It turns a routine stop into a thorough one because you just told the man there is a category of things you were hoping he would skip. So once the truck is in the lane, the truck is finished. Whatever condition it is in, that is the condition it gets looked at in. You fix it afterward, on paper, properly. Never in the 12 seconds while somebody with a badge walks toward your fender. Mistake number 3, the helpful overshare. And this is the one I mentioned at the start, the mistake that feels like good manners. The inspector asks for your logs and your medical card. The driver, wanting to be cooperative, hands over the whole folder. Every permit, old inspection reports, bills of lading from the last 3 loads, a repair invoice, a scale ticket, a work order from the shop. He was being helpful. What he handed over was reading material. Somewhere in that stack is an expired permit or an old inspection listing a defect nobody documented as corrected, or a repair order proving the truck has run with a known problem for 6 weeks. Nobody had to go looking for a reason. One was volunteered. It happens verbally too. Asked how the day is going, a driver says he has been up since 2:30 and he is beat. He meant it as small talk. The man with the clipboard heard a fatigue statement, and now the logs get read line by line. Every long-timer gives the same advice. Answer the question that was asked, hand over the document that was requested, and then stop talking. An inspection expands to fill whatever material you give it. Mistake number 4, ignoring the calendar. Enforcement is not spread evenly across the year, and the schedule is not a secret. The Safety Alliance posts its campaigns months ahead on a public calendar anybody can read. A 3-day international blitz in the spring puts tens of thousands of inspections across North America into 72 hours. And if you have ever driven past a weigh station with trucks backed up onto the shoulder in May, that is what you were looking at. A brake safety week later in the year comes with an announced focus. A driver behavior week targets seatbelts, speed, and phone use. Rookies find out about these the way you find out about a rainstorm, by getting wet. Veterans book the shop bay before the blitz instead of after, and roll in with the annual inspections done and the medical card current. Some get inspected on purpose during the campaign because that is exactly when clean reports and fresh decals get handed out in volume. The calendar is published, and reading it costs nothing. Mistake number 5, arguing on the shoulder. Because someday, even doing everything right, the inspector is going to find something, and the next 2 minutes decide whether it is a citation or a catastrophe. The mistake is treating the roadside as a courtroom. quoting the regulation back through the window, demanding to know why this truck, telling the man his ruler is wrong and that the last 4 states had no problem with it. Drivers do this because they are right often enough to believe it works. It does not, and the reason is simple. That inspector does not decide whether the violation stands. He writes what he observed. Wrong findings come off afterward through the formal review process, with photographs and repair orders and dates in front of somebody who has the authority to remove them. The shoulder of an interstate has no such authority. Arguing there only lengthens the inspection, and a longer inspection on any truck finds more. The men who have been through dozens of these say the same thing. Stay in the cab unless asked to step out, hands visible. Yes, sir, and no, sir, whether you feel it or not. Take the copy, fix what is fixable, and challenge what is wrong through the channel built for it. One driver who ran 14 years hauling steel out of Gary was written up 19 times across 6 states and never escalated a single stop because he understood the job on the other side of the window. The inspector is documenting, not hunting. Give him a short, boring document and he moves to the next truck. And when you step back, all 12 of these come down to a single job. Give the man with the flashlight nothing to be curious about. A clean record keeps you off the screen. A fresh decal keeps you out of the bay. Working lamps and a swept cab keep the walk around short. An organized folder keeps the paperwork at 5 minutes instead of 20. And a calm driver who says very little keeps the whole thing under half an hour. The men who mastered this were not trying to beat anybody. They were trying to get paid and get home. And somewhere along the way, they worked out that being unremarkable is a professional skill. Subscribe if you want more of this, because there is a lot of it and almost none of it is written down anywhere. And there is a video on the screen right now about what long-haul drivers know about staying safe overnight at rest areas. Most people never think about any of it until the night they need it. It is on the screen now if you want it.